Welcome back. Let's try again. I got a break, but I'm still copy video. Copy because my external hard drive is full. So they find a lot of old memory cards. Because I don't want to use my last money, 240,000 Danish kroner. I don't like to spend my last money on my MasterCard to buy. So I try to find old memory cards, and this is full. So and I'm still find the small memory cards, 120, 110 gigabyte is copy there. But when it's finished copy, something pop up I don't like to have on video, so just record 20 minutes and take a break. Then I will continue recording. So let's just get started.
Boeing 377 Stratocruiser. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Boeing 377 Stratocruiser Pan Am Stratocruiser San Francisco.jpg. A Pan Am Stratocruiser over San Francisco Bay roll long-range piston airliner, national origin United States manufacturer. Boeing commercial airplanes, first flight July 8, 1947, introduction April 1, 1949. With Pan American World Airways retired 1963, status retired, primary user Pan American World Airways, number build 56, 1, 2. Developed from Boeing C-97 straight-off-freighter variants, Aerospace Lines Pregnant Guppy, Aerospace Lines Super Guppy, Aerospace Lines Mini Guppy. The Boeing 377 Stratocruiser was a large long-range airliner developed from the C-97 straight-off-freighter military transport, itself a derivative of the B-29 Super Fortress. The Stratocruiser's first flight was on July 8, 1947. 3. Its design was advanced for its day. Its relatively innovative features, though neither completely new, included 2 passenger decks and a pressurized cabin. It could carry up to 100 passengers in the main deck plus 14 in the lower deck lounge. Typical seating was for 63 or 84 passengers or 28 berthed and 5-seated passengers. The Stratocruiser was larger than the Douglas DC-6 and Lockheed Constellation and cost more to buy and operate. Its reliability was poor, chiefly due to problems with the 428-cylinder Pratt & Whitney R4360 Wasp, major radial engines and structural and control problems with their propellers. Only 55 Model 377s were built for airlines, along with the single prototype. The 377 was also converted into the Aerospace Lines Pregnant Guppy by John M. Conroy for NASA's Gemini space program. Design and development. The Boeing 377 Stratocruiser was a civil derivative of Boeing Model 367, the Boeing C-97 straight-off-freighter, which first flew in late 1944. William Allen, who had become president of the Boeing Company in September 1945, sought to introduce a new civilian aircraft to replace reduced military production after World War II. 4. Boeing saw in the large-bodied, fast, and long-ranged military transport potential for a passenger aircraft suited for premium service on long transoceanic routes, expanding on the precedent set by their Boeing 314 Clipper with Pan American World Airways. Despite a recession in late 1945, Allen ordered 50 Stratocruisers, spending capital on the project without an order from an airline customer. 5. His gamble that customers would be interested in Boeing's unique and expensive new airplane turned out to be correct for a brief period. The Boeing 377 production line berths and seating aboard a 377 on the 29th of November, 1945 Pan American World Airways, Pan Am, became the launch customer with the largest commercial aircraft order in history, a $24,500,000 order for 20 Stratocruisers. 5. Earlier in 1945 a Boeing C-97 had flown from Seattle to Washington, D.C. non-stop in 6 hours and 4 minutes. With this knowledge, and with Pan Am President Juan Tripp's high regard for Boeing after their success with the Boeing 314 Clipper, Pan Am was confident in ordering the expensive plane. 5. 6. The 377 shared the distinctive design of the C-97, with a double bubble fuselage cross-section, resembling an inverted figure 8 with 6,600 foot cubed, 187 cubic meters, of interior space shared between two passenger decks. Outside diameter of the upper lobe was 132 inches compared to 125 inches for the DC-6 and other Douglas types, and 148 inches for today's 737. The lower deck served as a lounge, seating 14. The 377 had innovations such as higher cabin pressure and air conditioning. The superchargers on the 4 Pratt & Whitney R4360 engines increased power at altitude and allowed constant cabin pressure. 7. The wing was the Boeing 117 airfoil. In all, 4 million man-hours went into the engineering of the 377. 8. It was one of a few double-deck airliners, another being its French contemporary, the Breguet de Expanse, as well as Boeing's own 747 and the Airbus A380. A total of 56 were built, 1 air prototype, later reconditioned, and 55 production aircraft. The first flight of the 377 was on the 8th of July, 1947, 2 years after the first commercial order. The flight test fleet of 3377s underwent 250,000 mi, 217,000 mi, 402,000 kilometers, of flying to test its limits before certification. 9. Adoption of the Stratocruiser got a boost from the U.S. government, with a controversial incentive package offered to Northwest Orient Airlines for its purchase. Its components were unusually generous mail contracts offered to Northwest for opening new routes to Hawaii and points in the Western Pacific region that they were invited to apply for, and a Reconstruction Finance Corporation loan earmarked for the purchase of a fleet of Stratocruisers. Pan Am saw Northwest's mail contract deal and appealed for Newtons in their own international mail contracts, which were granted much to the consternation of Transworld Airlines, who were able to provide the same Atlantic mail services as Pan Am with lower operating costs. The Northwest deal led to allegations of graft and political favoritism towards Boeing. 10. The other carriers who adopted the Stratocruiser were British Overseas Airways Corporation, American Overseas Airlines, merged with Pan Am in 1950, and United Airlines. The last 377 was delivered to BOAC in May 1950. On this delivery flight, Boeing engineer Wellwood Beale accompanied the final 377 to England, and returned with news of the de Havilland Comet, the first jet airliner, and its appeal. 7. That news of the Stratocruiser with United ended in 1954, when United had the opportunity to sell them to BOAC after finding them unprofitable without the extra mail subsidies enjoyed by Pan Am and Northwest. Only 56 were built, 1 prototype, later reconditioned, and 55 production aircraft. As a result of low production volume, Boeing lost $7 million on the aircraft. 11. Operational history. A United Airlines 377 over the Golden Gate Bridge aboard Stratocruiser as the launch customer. Pan Am was the first to begin scheduled flights, from San Francisco to Honolulu in April 1949. At the end of 1949, Pan Am, Boeing and American Overseas Airlines, AOA, were flying 377s transatlantic, while Northwest Orient Airlines was flying in the United States. In January 1950, United began flights from San Francisco to Honolulu. Stratocruisers were pressed into emergency military service after the onset of the Korean War. 10. In late 1950, Northwest Stratocruisers were serving New York City, Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis /St. Paul, Milwaukee, Spokane, Seattle, and Honolulu. 12. By late 1952, Northwest Stratocruisers replaced DC-4s to Tokyo via Anchorage, Alaska. Winking sad smiley 13. Northwest replaced the Stratocruiser on the Honolulu run in 1953, 14, and to Tokyo in 1955. 15. For a short time, Pan Am 377s flew to Beirut, Lebanon, but after 1954 no. 377 was scheduled east of Europe or west of Singapore. In 1954, United Stratocruisers flew Los Angeles to Honolulu and between Seattle and San Francisco. Winking sad smiley 16. United's B377 flights to Honolulu were all first class. In 1955, Boeing 377s had 50 first-class seats, fare $400 one-way New York to London, or 81 tourist seats, fare $290. 17. In 1956, Pan Am 377s flew from Los Angeles and San Francisco to Sydney with stops at Honolulu, Canton Island and Suva, via Nadi Airport in Fiji. 18. By 1958, Pan Am was operating the Stratocruiser between Seattle, Washington and Fairbanks, Juneau and Ketchikan, Alaska, and between Seattle and Whitehorse, Yukon. 19. Within 6 years of first delivery, the Stratocruiser had carried 3,199,219 passengers. It had completed 3,597 transcontinental flights, and 27,678 transatlantic crossings, and went between the United States and South America 822 times. In these first 6 years, the Stratocruiser fleet had flown 169,859,579 miles, 273,362,494 km. 7. The 377 was one of the most advanced and capable of the propeller-driven transports, and among the most luxurious. 8. But it was troubled by reliability issues and maintenance costs. Problems included catastrophic failures of propellers, failures of propeller pitch control leading to overspeed incidents, problems related to poor thermal design of the engine, and aerodynamic problems arising from design constraints imposed by the engine's thermal problems. 10. 20. Its service record was marred by a high incidence of in-flight emergencies and hull loss accidents related to those issues. 21. The propellers were the subject of airworthiness directives in 1955, 1957, and 1958. 21. 20. In 1953, United's chief executive, Ray Ireland, described the Stratocruiser as unbeatable in luxury attraction but is uneconomical. Ireland said PAA's Stratocruiser competition to Hawaii induced United to buy the plane originally. 22. In 1950, United's 737s averaged $2.46 direct operating cost per plane mile, and indirect costs are generally considered to be equal or greater than the direct costs. 23. Most operators were using Stratocruisers on long-range routes where higher prices could be charged, offsetting the higher operating costs. 24. The exception was Northwest Airlines, who managed to keep the aircraft competitive on shorter U.S. domestic routes where the aircraft's higher payload capacity benefited from lower fuel weights. United, however, could not integrate their six-plane fleet of 377s. By 1954, the lack of spares and the inability to cross-train their Douglas crews with the type relegated their Stratocruisers primarily to their Hawaii route, where they faced stiff competition from Pan American and Northwest. By the end of that year, the 6 United 377s were all sold to Boeing in a deal orchestrated by Douglas Aircraft. Boeing, which was short of aircraft after the grounding of the Comet 1, paid between $895,000 and $995,000 per unit and spares for what were essentially 5-year-old aircraft. An equivalent brand new Douglas DC-7 cost $775,000 in 1954. 25. Boeing set never exceed speed at 351 miles per hour, 305 kn, 565 kilometers per hour, IAS, but in testing, the 377 reached 409 miles per hour, 355 kn, 658 kilometers per hour, IAS, about 500 miles per hour, 430 kn, 800 kilometers per hour, TARS, in a 15-20 degree dive at 13,500 foot, 4,100 m, winking sad smiley 26. Another report, 27, said it reached 498 miles per hour, 801 kilometers per hour, true airspeed while diving from 21,000 feet, 6,400 m, altitude to 12,000 feet, 3,700 m, in 50 seconds using full rated power. Typical airline cruise was less than 300 miles per hour, 260 kn, 480 kilometers per hour. In August 1953, Pan Am and United 377s and United DC-6s were scheduled between Honolulu and San Francisco, 2,398 mi, 3,859 kilometers, in 9h 45 min each way. The longest, by distance, 377 non-stop flights were made by Pan Am from Tokyo to Honolulu during 4 winter seasons beginning in 1952-1953. In January 1953, 2 non-stops a week were scheduled with a flight time of 11 hours 1 minute due to tailwinds. The following August all flights took 19 hours, with a stop at Wake Island Airfield. In winter 1953-54, one Tokyo-Honolulu flight took 9 hours 35 minutes for 3,853 Great Circle miles.
Let's take a break. Check how much the copy. The copy is 30%, so let's just continue. Just read that 20 more minutes.
(6,201 kilometers. 28. By 1960, Stratocruisers were being superseded by jets. The de Havilland Comet, Boeing 707, and Douglas DC-8. The last flight of the 377 with United was in 1954, the last with Boeing was in 1959, and the last with Northwest was in September 1960. In November 1960, only a weekly Pan Am Honolulu to Singapore flight remained, and the 377 was retired by Pan Am in 1961. High operating costs, notably the fuel consumption and maintenance of the WASP major engines, led to rapid abandonment of the 377 with the onset of the jet era. 10. Its contemporaries such as the Douglas DC-6 and the Lockheed Constellation continued longer, on secondary routes or rebuilt as freighters.